Hi, everyone. We've got some breaking news to tell you about right now. It seems the verdict is in the Derek Chauvin trial, the murder of George Floyd, coming to us out of Minnesota. The judge there, Peter Cahill, says that the jury is on recess right now, but will be there reassembling when court is back in session between 3:30 and 4 p.m. Central Time. So that would be in about an hour, let's see, from now, here on the East Coast. So sometime between now 4:30 and 5 o'clock our time here on the East Coast. Of course, this is a trial that has just captivated the nation. It has been extremely emotional, and frankly has not been helped in some ways by some lawmakers, specifically, of course, Maxine Waters traveling, breaking curfew that was enacted there in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota over the weekend, to go out and talk with protesters and demand that if they do not get the guilty verdict that they want, that they follow up with more protests and more problems. And the concern right now with the nation very much on edge is that this will lead to additional violence. In other words, depending on what this verdict is, and we'll see. I mean, even the president actually was weighing in on this earlier today. He spoke to reporters in the Oval Office and actually said that he was praying for the, quote, right verdict. That was interpreted to mean a guilty verdict, but he did say he was praying for this verdict. It's very sensitive, of course, when people in such official capacities are talking about something as serious as this. This is something the Judge Peter Cahill, did point out, of course, in yesterday's session, when he said that Maxine Waters may have actually contributed to the possibility of a mistrial upon appeal. In other words, the defense was arguing that this is completely out of control, and how could the jury in any way be completely unbiased given what has been reported in the media? And he acknowledged that and specifically called out Maxine Waters, the representative from California, for her statements, and sounded actually quite angry as he did, effectively making the point that lawmakers should have some respect for the judicial branch of government. There's a lot of fear right now that some people are very deliberately trying to stoke some of this sentiment, this negativity, right, that's out there right now, increasingly to divide us as a nation. Kevin McCarthy making this statement on Fox just last night, making the point that he believes Maxine Waters is effectively courting this violence, right, by using it to try and advance some of her own causes. So that's one of the biggest concerns right now. Again, we're awaiting right now the jury's verdict in the Chauvin case, Derek Chauvin, which has just been so emotionally trying, I think, for this country, and has led to a lot of these uprisings over the course of the last year. A lot of frustration right now by so many people, specifically within minority communities, that feel like they're not getting a fair shake. Nonetheless, at the same time, it's not helped by the likes of Rashida Tlaib, who's out there tweeting, no police, no incarceration, no militarization. In other words, when you have lawmakers suggesting things that are so adverse to who we are as a nation, right, with law and order, that becomes highly problematic in and of itself and actually can feed a violent narrative. We've had so much trouble over the course of the last year with rioting, with looting, and so many communities that depend on their businesses there have seen those businesses really be devastated by that kind of behavior. And so one has to hope that going into whatever this verdict may be here tonight, that we have a positive reaction as opposed to some of the negativity that is most expected right now. Again, I'm just watching because we anticipate momentarily that we will get this verdict, a verdict that the president weighed in on earlier today with commentary that he prayed that the jury had reached the right verdict. We have more of this online at trishintel.com. That is the news organization I run, trishintel.com. More intel for you. Again, the verdict has been reached in the trial of Derek Chauvin. We want you to be up to date on the very, very latest. They're expecting that that's going to be coming in any moment now. Of course, it's been a really challenging time. It's been a really challenging time for that community specifically, especially in light of another man suffering just a horrible fate at the hands of a police officer who mistakenly, this is about 10 miles away from where George Floyd was killed, just about 10 miles away, and she stopped someone and wound up, as he took off, as he sped off on a Sunday afternoon, she wound up firing at him with what she thought was her taser gun. It turns out it was the real deal, and the man has since died. And so this entire community is very, very much on edge. That was the 20-year-old there in Brooklyn Center. So now people are quite fearful of what might actually transpire. More than 3,000 National Guard soldiers, along with state and local police officers, are there patrolling the area. You have sheriff's deputies, other law enforcement members that are there in Minneapolis, that are coming to Minneapolis in recent days, trying to manage this situation. Some of you are weighing in. Alex, it's good to hear from you. The politicians had nothing to do with the safety and service to American citizens. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the problem here is that law enforcement is trying to protect the people, and they're trying to do their job. But you have politicians that are using the extraordinarily unfortunate, horrific circumstances of this moment for political purposes. And that's the real challenge. As Judge Cahill said yesterday when he called them out, specifically naming Maxine Waters, saying that she might actually be the reason why Chauvin gets a mistrial upon appeal, because, you know, for you to be going out and saying these things. The president even weighing in today, although he did point out that he was doing so while the jury was sequestered. Good to have all of you here. You know, so many of you responding. You know, you're right. Nick pointing out that there is so much extremism on both sides. I agree with that, and it's so wrong, because we need to be coming together. We need to be logical about this. You can't have leftist politicians like Congresswoman Tlaib suggesting no police, no incarceration, no militarization. Is that what we're supposed to be, some kind of anarchy? We're supposed to be some kind of lawless, third world, horrific place where, you know, you can't walk down the street because there are 13-year-olds with guns shooting at cars at 2:38 in the morning. I mean, as horrible as all of this is, you have to keep in mind that there has to be some boundaries. You can't run from police. You can't have a gun in your hand at 2:38 in the morning shooting at cars. And we need our police there to protect us from that. So to suggest that we have no police, or that there be no jail or no military, is frankly highly, highly irresponsible and not really conducive to any kind of real conclusion here or real solution, right? We should be talking about ways to improve our safety in our communities. And we should be talking about ways to make sure that police, you know, are not reaching for the taser. I mean, the gun, I should say, instead of the taser. I mean, this is the danger in this environment. And I don't like that our lawmakers have exploited it. And this is exactly what Judge Cahill said when he cited what was happening there with Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters actually going to Brooklyn Center, speaking with crowds there and saying, look, we need to do more. We need to do more. And it's a way of saying it, right? You know, it's one thing to say, we need to protect members of our community. It's another thing to talk about, oh, we need to go and engage more in these protests. I'm all for peaceful protest. I mean, you know that. I'm all for freedom of speech. It's really the foundation of who I am, and it's what guides me. However, it becomes very different when it involves rioting, it involves looting, it involves stealing. I was running through some sound earlier on the podcast. If you haven't downloaded my podcast, please do make sure that you do that. The Trish Intel podcast today, where I played a clip from a young woman out in Chicago last summer during one of the protests, and she was making the argument that it's a good thing if people loot stores like Gucci and Nike, because she said, then at least they can eat. In other words, they're entitled to do this because of the oppression that they've suffered. That's not who we are, right, as Americans. We don't believe that we can steal from one another, including those big businesses, because we've been oppressed by one group at one point in time. We need to kind of work through this. We need to find solutions that are manageable in this environment. Thank you so much. Oh, so we're looking for the verdict that is said to be coming in momentarily. It's going to be read by the judge there, Judge Cahill. They have reached a verdict. The verdict is to be read between 3:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. Central Time. So any moment now, we are waiting on this. And the verdict will be read in the trial of Derek Chauvin, George Floyd dying a really horrible, horrible death that was recorded on video and on cell phones with people pleading in the background to get off of him. And it's tremendously sad that this has turned into what it is today, because effectively you now have people that feel that the police are not there to police and to patrol, but they believe that the police are there to effectively get them and hurt them. And I got to say that it's a horrible moment right now in our country's history, because we have come so far. I mean, we had an African-American president that was elected for 2 terms. We now have a woman who's part African-American, part Black, that is the Vice President of the United States. And I like to believe that this is a country where if you have goals and aspirations, we have the mechanisms set up to help you achieve that. And I realize there are a lot of challenges, especially in a lot of inner cities all across this country. But I see these not as racial challenges, but as socioeconomic challenges. Socioeconomic challenges that really are made worse by poor leadership that is not held accountable enough. I mean, the idea that kids in Baltimore were some of the last to go back to school, and yet, you have kids in plenty of other communities across America. Why? Because the teachers' unions had enough power, because the politicians are so beholden to the teachers' unions. And by the way, you know who else is beholden to the teachers' unions? Is Joe Biden. Not even Barack Obama was as beholden to the teachers' unions as Joe Biden is right now. And so there's a lot of things that are going very, very wrong. And we're allowing effectively bigger and bigger power to take over, government power, woke power, progressive power that doesn't have the interest of the average American there at heart. And so this has become in so many ways a symbol of that, and is really, really terrible when you think about it. I'm just reading some of your commentary there as these comments come in, and it looks like, we don't know. I mean, again, it should be coming out momentarily. We will find out what the jurors decided. I expect that this case will be appealed, and I expect that thanks to Maxine Waters, there's some chance, some percentage of a chance that actually there could be a mistrial, right? This is what Judge Cahill, Peter Cahill, said just yesterday. The idea that you have a lawmaker, a member of our U.S. Congress out there spouting off, is saying what she said, and effectively trying to encourage violence if they don't get a guilty verdict. As he pointed out, as the judge pointed out, I mean, it's such a violation of trust, right, within the judicial system. In other words, he expects and would like to see that our lawmakers would back off and not intervene in that process, because that process, by the way, is too precious. This is our system. You know what? It's the only system we got. I realize a lot of people want to tear it down, throw it all out. Hey, they want a new Supreme Court, right? While we're at it, I mean, it's not just Maxine Waters talking specifically about this case. You have numerous politicians right now pushing for more justices so that they can do away with the conservative majority on the court right now. That's not how it works. I mean, we've had this process in place for 200 plus years. And by the way, I should point out, other people have tried this. Even FDR tried to pack the court. It didn't work. I think there's something inherently wrong with that, and it will backfire politically, because that's not where the country is. Thank you to all of you for tuning in right now. Look, Again, we're getting word that the verdict is in and will be read between the hours of 3:30 and 4 p.m. Central Time. That would be 4:30 and 5 p.m. on the East Coast. This is the verdict in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former police officer that has been charged in the murder of George Floyd. This has become extremely political. This has become very much a touch point. You see, for example, yesterday in Florida, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, introduced an anti-riot bill. The timing of that was very specific, right? He did this just a day before. Now we're getting this verdict in hopes of being able to deter people from rioting, from looting, from burglary, and from battery with bigger sentences. I mean, it's amazing that we have to say all this, because again, we're an incredible country, an incredible society, and yet you have these moments where sort of the worst in people come out, and you have politicians, unfortunately, that are sort of pushing a lot of this emotion really to the brink and giving people some cover, if you would, to be involved in some of these protests that have turned violent, and that's never okay. Again, good to have all of you here. I want to encourage you to go to trishintel.com. I am very quickly going to go back and watch some of this myself, and I will be back here with you momentarily as we get the verdict in. Again, jurors have come to a verdict in the George Floyd death. We're waiting on getting this any moment now. Chauvin has gotten to the courthouse with his attorney. He's been charged with second and third degree murder, second degree manslaughter. The former officer, who is white, has been seen, of course, pinning George Floyd, the 46-year-old black man, to the ground on his knee last Memorial Day weekend. It took over 9 months. 9 minutes for the police to respond to the report that Floyd had used a counterfeit $20 bill. And then there was cell phone video of Chauvin holding, his knee on Floyd's neck. And that really touched, I think, so many people and was so horrific to watch and inexcusable and extremely sad. But now we're dealing with a very sad moment all over again, because you have a lot of people in Minnesota that feel like the system is rigged against them. And so if they don't get the verdict that they want to see, or that the president, by the way, who had to weigh in on this too, wants to see, or that Maxine Waters wants to see, then you run the risk of additional problems, additional violence. So we're covering all of this for you. Again, you can go to trishintel.com and we'll have more for you. It's good to have all of you here. I'm going to actually start doing this more and more right here on YouTube. So I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel and to share it with your friends and to be here. We'll start, on a more regular basis. I just wanted to come on and talk to you because the news was just breaking and we were just finishing up an earlier recording here. But again, 3:30 to 4 p.m. Central Time. So any moment now we will find out whether this is a guilty verdict or not. Again, second and third degree murder, second degree manslaughter, those are the charges. And there are a lot of people, including Maxine Waters, who very much want to make sure that this is a guilty charge. And if it's not guilty, the expectation is we could have some problems, some serious problems. I mean, I think the expectation is no matter what, there might be some problems there tonight. It's one of the reasons why Ron DeSantis moved for the anti-riot bill there in Florida, to try and basically police some of this a little bit more. But you have 3,000 National Guard troops there standing by right now in Minnesota, basically prepared for the worst. Let's hope that this is a peaceful night. Let's hope that if there's any protests, that those protests are peaceful. Again, I would just reiterate, protests are good. We need the ability to do that. It's part of who we are as Americans. It is part of our freedom of speech. But when those protests cross a line and they become violent, when they turn into looting or to rioting, that's when we really and truly seriously have a problem. Anyway, very good to have all of you here. Again, please go to trishintel.com. Please subscribe to this channel. If you're watching right now, do me that favor, because we've got much more content that I want to bring your way, including video, including sound, like real TV. We'll be here for you. But just know that I'm thinking of all of you right now. I'm thinking of the state of Minnesota. I'm thinking of all the people there with this horrible, horrible tragedy. And I'll be back with you as we get the news in. We all have a moment to digest it and we see how things transpire. And again, my heart goes out to everyone. I mean, this is a horrible situation for our country to be in. And I think we still have to remember that we need our police. We need our police. They are very much a part of keeping us safe. And we shouldn't lose sight of that. no matter how awful all of this is. Anyway, thank you again. I'll see you on trishintel.com, and we'll keep talking.